Now, do we have discussion? I have Ms. Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make this brief. I once heard Governor Winfield Dunn say, "I like government handouts. I'd like for the government to keep its hand out of my pocket." We as commissioners can do no less for our folks here at home. The average family spends almost 50% of their income on some form of taxes. The U.S. Economic Council states that our gasoline will go up to $5 per gallon, throwing us into an even greater recession. I was in the drugstore the other day. I was complaining about my high copays on medications when the druggist was telling me that how many of his elderly patients come in and take their medication only every other day because they cannot afford the high cost of drugs. I could go on and on. I could talk about foreclosures, short sales. I could talk about our children going to school hungry, the free lunch enrollment increasing, families surrendering their pets at the shelter, which some of you think is not very important, but to a family that loves an animal, it is. These are symptoms of a very sick economy. I could go on and on, but I think everybody gets the picture. I'd like to remind the Commission that we all ran and were elected on a platform. I was privileged to help write that platform at the last convention. There are 2 planks in that platform that specifically states that we do not support increasing taxes or more government. We have talked the talk, each of us. Now we must walk the walk. I urge each and every commissioner here, do not vote for a tax hike. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, that's enough. Mr. Samples? Mr. Samples.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As promised, I want to offer an amendment to the current motion on the floor. My amendment is that the property tax be at $2.04, with the Education Department receiving 97 cents, debt service receiving 41 cents, and General County receiving 66 cents. That general liability be postponed for at least a year, the contributions to that, so that the school department might make use of the $360,000, which would bring them back to 99 cents. With all due respect to Mr. Smaldone, I do agree with the other gentleman that was up here that while this proposal will require the use of fund balances, and I think it's going to be around 1.6 million of that, even worst case scenario, that still leaves us at 14.5 million, somewhere in that range, and could go even as high as 15.5 million in fund balances. And I happen to agree, this is already taxpayer dollars we've collected. This money belongs to these people. They've already given it to us to fund this budget. I'm not going to make the same speech I made the other night, but I would amend the motion to reflect what I just said, and we stay at 204 with those changes. And Mr. Chairman, I make that in the form of an amendment. I'm waiting on a second.
Second.
You second that?
I did.
Mr. Folks? Mr. Folks? Yes, you're up, Mr. Folks.
Okay, we're taking 7 and 8 together.
Hold on, Mr. Crawford told me to move on with the discussion. Is that right? Okay, on the amendment. Okay, and your light was on, Mr. Falk. Is that on the amendment?
It was not originally on the amendment, but I'll talk to the amendment. Since we're taking these 2 things together and we're not considering the appropriations first and then the tax rate, I think it's important for everyone to understand that we have a budget here that calls for a 240+ tax rate. And what Mr. Samples has done is find a way to use one-time funds and reserves to keep the rate at 204. I think that addresses half the problem. We need to also address, through amendments, the other half of the problem. But I see no reason to continue to feed this beast that is consuming our money so quickly and excessively. And therefore, I think Mr. Samples is on the right track, and I support him.
Do I have any other discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we are voting on the amendment that Mr. Samples put forth. Does everyone understand? If they do, you can vote.
You have 8 yeses and 13 noes.
I have 8 yeses and how many noes? 13 noes.
13 noes.
And the amendment fails. Now we're going back now, excuse me, to the original motion to accept the tax rate that came from the Budget Committee. Is that right? And I think Mr. Leo made that motion. Is that right? If I'm getting correct? And I have a second from Mr. Lewis. Everybody understand? Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, Mr. Folks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The comparison that Citizens for Better Government did indicated that the county is overspending to the tune of over $9 million. Now, a more recent, a gentleman spoke earlier to a study he had done, which I have read. Frankly, it's nice to see that someone outside the county accounting department is also reading audit reports. However, he presented a study which works on total numbers, total spending of the county. And when you do that and don't look at what's behind those numbers, you come to wrong conclusions. And the problem was that Sumner County, in their total expenditures, paid off $31 million of debt. In the same year, we paid off $4 million. Sumner County has $145 million of total debt, and they have a school system with 27,000 children because they have a unified school system. We have 11,000. So you reach bad conclusions when you don't look at what's behind the data, which is why the Citizens for Better Government data went down to the department level. Now, it's worth asking how we're doing against the savings goals that Citizens for Better Government said if we reach the average of all the other counties. We're not trying to be the best. We're just trying to reach the average spending levels of the other counties. And let's take them one at a time. The basic sheriff's department. In 2009, our sheriff's department, according to the audit, spent $11 million. The average, if we were average efficiency, we should have spent around $9 million. The new budget calls for $10.8 million. We should have been looking for a 21% cut. What we got was 1.8%. The jail. We have a very expensive jail. In 2009, we spent $6.8 million. The average, if we reach the average efficiency of the other counties, we should be spending about $4.2 million. And the new budget calls for $7.2 million, 7.197 to be exact. We're overspending to the tune of 62%. The new budget increases 4.9%. So we didn't get any of the desired reduction to reach, we didn't take any steps to reach average efficiency. Juvenile services is an area that fascinates me, juvenile detention. The average of the other counties was $474,000. Our new budget calls for $1.4 million. The overspending is 166%. And we increased the budget in the new budget, 11.7. The mayor's departments. We should have been aiming at a $3.7 million figure. The new budget has $6.7 million. That's an increase of 8. We were looking for a reduction of 63%. We actually increased 8.6%. Now, I'll be fair to the mayor. He did try to reduce spending in a number of departments. In some cases, he didn't get the cooperation of the commissioners, and in other cases, he just went ahead and did it, including cutting his own salary. However, he was saddled with some legacy liabilities, like an insurance problem, where the liability insurance fund was exhausted and had to be replenished. He's saddled with that building, the old Ceramispeed building, which consumes substantial additional money, as many people said it would when the deal was originally done. But the facts are that we didn't get any of the 63% that would have got us to average. It went up 8.6%. Industrial development, a political sacred cow if there ever was one. The average of the other county spending is $313,000. Our new budget is $860,000. Now, we were looking for a 263%. Our spending was 263% above average. We did cut it 32%. So we made some progress there. Our courts, mostly under the surveillance of Mr. Hatcher. We were looking for a target spending of $2.3 million, a 35% reduction compared to where we are. What we got was a 5.9% increase. The assessor, we were looking for 17.5% reduction. What we got was a 4.8% reduction, so at least we made some progress. The other departments are doing okay. They're able to operate their departments at close to the average of the other counties. But until we make some progress with these departments, we haven't got a viable budget. And we surely shouldn't be taxing the people to pay for this kind of waste. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod.